Good afternoon. My name is Riana Neels. I've been working at Qualitree for about almost 5 years now. I started as a pest scout and very quickly was thrown into section growing, and I currently grow in the 2 outside areas that you walked through today. I also work closely with Wilma on crop nutrition. But today, our last topic for the day is plant growth regulation. So we know that one of the greatest factors in inhibiting growth is natural sunlight. The plant that you see on the left was grown indoors under glass. The exact same variety, same production cycle, was grown outside, was finished outside under natural light. So obviously temperature played a factor in this as well, but the plant on the left is much bigger. The flower color is not as bright, while the plant on the right is compact, darker flower color, and the bloom time was only affected by a few days. When we're finishing our lavender liners, we have very low light conditions because of the cloudy and lots of precipitation over the winter. So we tend to grow our lavender in very cool temperatures. Starting in about October, we're heating at 2 degrees and venting at 4 degrees, and then we just allow them to finish naturally in the spring. Diff is the difference between day and night temperatures. A lot of annual growers especially will know that negative diff is when you grow when your climates are cooler, warmer in the evening, warmer overnight and cooler during the day. And cool pause is a variation of that where you shock the plants early in the morning before dawn for a couple of hours by opening the vents. We don't have any experience with this. We're not sure how we can implement it because we're already growing our lavender very cool. But perhaps in areas such as New Mexico with very high natural light levels, or if you have facilities with artificial lighting, you could really make use of this. And if any of you are growers who have experienced using Diff to control plant growth, please share your experiences with us during the expert panel session. We use water as a method to slow down our growth. We'll dry down our plants to level 2 or 3 on this scale, which was we referenced Paul Fisher from Florida State University. We found this skill in Back Pocket Grower, and Will Healy from Ball also taught us this several years ago when he visited. So we're aiming to keep our lavender between 2 and 3 on the moisture scale. If we're at 4 or 5, it's oversaturated. We don't want that much moisture in the soil. If it's at 1, you run risk of damaging your plants. As Steph mentioned earlier, soil mix is crucial. If you're having to water often because you're draining too fast, you're not going to be able to slowly dry down the soil like we want you to do. If your soil mix is too water retentive, it's going to stay saturated and you won't have the plant growth regulation effects that you're looking for. We do want to express caution, especially once the flowers start coming into bloom, because if you dried them down too far, the flower heads, the flags could burn and the flower heads turn brown and produce seed pods very quickly, which obviously will decrease your shelf life. Since we've started working with Wilma in 2017, we've really decreased the nitrogen levels in our fertilizer mixes, and toward the end of the finishing period and most of the growing season, we lower the nitrogen and raise the potassium in our lavender fertilizer mixes. We also always apply additional magnesium sulfate in both the fertilizer tanks as well as any chemical or any foliar applications we do. The Epsom salts act as a surfactant. They also harden the growth and keep the leaves nice and green throughout the growing season. Media buffering capacity is very important because if you don't have good buffering capacity, all the fertilizing you are doing is going to be of no effect. We're experimenting with live clay, the example is still laying on the front table if you're interested to look, to increase the CEC capacity of our soil. Over the years, we always stopped fertilizing just as the plants were coming into bloom because we were very afraid of burning the flags, as you may be able to see on the pictures in your booklets. Now we know that, just like we've done with this picture here, we actually increased the EC to 2 EC during the finishing period for some of our batches to keep that foliage nice and green, keep the flowers bright, and we had no damage this year despite the flowers being in full bloom. So we know that if your crop is well fed throughout the production cycle, you don't have to worry about that burn because the plants are strong enough to withstand the extra fertilizer coming overhead. This year we have been experimenting with using calcium chloride at a rate of 15 grams per liter as a plant growth regulator. We got the idea from Wilma. She has some customers in Europe who are experimenting with 30 grams up to 100 grams per liter on Daphne and rosemary crops. At the higher rates, they've noticed some damage to the rosemary, but nothing on the Daphne, even at 100 grams per liter. Some of the there's no other side effects besides the burn at the very high rate. This is the liner we finished using only calcium chloride, so we're quite satisfied. It could be better, of course. A lot of chemical PGARS have flower induction characteristics. Calcium chloride obviously does not, so what her customer is experimenting with is adding manganese as a foliar spray to have that flower induction effect, which is something we'd like to experiment with next year. We've also experimented with some amino acid products this year. There's 24 amino acids in each plant. 22 of them are known to be very plant essential. The aminogram pictured here is an example of what that could look like. So it shows you the different amino acids in the product as well as their concentrations. So some of them play a role in stress reduction, branching, transport of nitrogen, rooting initiation, and plant defense. Of course, we're really interested in the branching characteristics because we want to reduce the amount of trimming we need to do. It's a stressful event, often has side effects such as loss of roots. We also, of course, we want to increase our plant defense capabilities, and using amino acids can help us do those things. And we had interesting discussions with Wilma and Janet Curry on Monday, so they're both in the room now. If you have questions, they'll for sure be able to give you some more information about amino acids. And last but not least, chemical PGARs. We use this as a last resort. We really want to encourage you to try everything else before resorting to chemical PGARs. We've experienced success with diminozide. We know that growers in other parts of North America are using paclobutrazole and chloride chloride, bonsai and cycocel with various other product trade names. There are some side effects to chemical PGRs, such as stunting of roots, which we've really experienced. In fact, we've sometimes had to PGR on top and then get the roots going again on the bottom using potassium phosphate products. So they obviously have side effects. Also, we've noticed that going into the fall, you want to really decrease your applications because it can really stunt the plant and you can have issues in the spring with them not being able to get going again. Another caution is that with B9, if you're also applying copper fungicides, bactericides, you really want to make sure that your distance between the applications is at least 7 days because we've experienced burn because of the reaction between the diminozide and the copper products. And you all come from different areas. As you're all very well aware, the labeling is different for all of these products. And depending on where you are, you may have different products available that work just as well for you. We just don't have experience with them yet. And this is some of the lavender liners that we've been shipping out the last week and a half or so. We just started, and it shows you what they look like today. Thank you.